All right, we're live back again. The AllStar MMA live show. We're back to recap UFC Vegas 74, Kai Kara France versus Amir Albazi. Lots of controversy in that matchup. Not even in the matchup, just in the results, the scorecards, right? And we're going to jump into that. But before we jump into that, make sure you guys go in the descriptions, download the AllStar app, make your picks on the app. And even if you don't, follow MMA as closely, you could go follow NBA, soccer, anything, pretty much any sport. It's customizable. So go check out the app and utilize it, man. It's fun. And you could join J-Spec's league. J-Spec, tell them about the league, man.
All right, so it's real simple. You get into the app, click picks, and join contests. What contest is that? J-Spec's Prize League, where I am giving away autographed memorabilia to the highest scoring individual every month. And there's some other rules inside of that. Nothing too hard, but the rules basically make it so that everybody can win. So if you're a champion, you got to sit down for 2 months. You're not eligible for prizes. That's the biggest hurdle, just to get everybody a chance to win. Other than that, we do a special event where you don't have to be the highest scoring person of the month. On our YouTube, Twitter watch parties that I do every week for UFC events, the UFC pay-per-view events, we do a small game within a game called the Ultimate Fight game, and you just have to be the best picker at the watch party, and you will win autographed memorabilia that way. So 2 times you have the chance per month to win. So there you go.
Yeah, man, it's an incredible opportunity, man. You make picks, you win, and you win memorabilia. Like that memorabilia, no one could ever take from you. You know what I mean? It's something that even if the fighter dies, hopefully nobody dies too quick. But if they do, they live it, forever with you. You know what I mean? With the memorabilia. What did you give out? Did you give out anything yet?
No, not yet, because we're waiting for the wonderful feature to be added to the app, and it's a recently added, I think late May, so it wasn't fair to run May's contest. So June, everybody get in. If you're already on the app, don't worry. If you're already on the app and you haven't joined, it'll take your scores from your say this week's fight that you might have not be in my league, and it'll merge your score into the league. So just come on in, and you know what? There's plenty of fights left, plenty of scoring opportunity. There's no champion crowned yet. We just started this month, baby. So just jump on in and get used to it. We're going to do this month after month till the wheels fall off, baby.
There you go, man. Yeah, there's some killers on that app, man. Some guys that are really, really good at picking who's going to win, the method, the round. It's insane, like how well versed some of the fans are. So everybody get on that and beat Harris. We know Harris. If you're watching, we know you, man. We try to figure you out, man.
I tied him. That's the best I ever did. I tied Harris this last event, and I was like, championship. I don't even care if it's a tie. I'm taking this one home.
Yeah. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe and the like button. Leave a comment as well. As we go through all the fights from yesterday. And Sicko, man, appreciate you for coming on. Make sure you guys go follow Sicko at Sicko Sports and go hit up his YouTube, subscribe to it. What's the title? What's the title of your page?
Sicko Sports Podcast. You just type that in YouTube and Spotify, and you'll see me.
There you go, man. He's been putting in the work, you know what I mean? And follow him on social media. He putting up some good clips, man. And he's doing other sports as well, you know what I mean? NBA, NFL. You're doing all of them, right?
Mostly those, MMA, NFL, NBA.
All right,
those
there you go.
Ones, yeah.
All right, let's jump into the main event. Amir Albazi takes the split decision over Kai Kara France. When there's a decision, right? I don't care if it's split or if it's unanimous, as long as the right fighter won. And there's a lot of controversy here, man. We've seen the video of Izzy reacting to the decision. He kind of like knew before the decision was read. He had a feeling that his boy was gonna lose. There's a lot of people that thought Amir won, and rightfully so. And there's a lot of people that thought Kai Kara France won. You know what I mean? There's a controversy. I wanted to get your reactions first, J-Spec, on this fight and the decision. I know you picked Amir Albazi.
I did pick Amir. Now, it's not anything against Kai on any level. He's a good fighter. Actually, I've been adoring Kai since literally the beginning of his career. When he entered the UFC, I thought to myself, man, he's got the moves at an early level. And here he is, top 3, top 5 type fighter. And that's what he is. On the other hand, this controversy it falls in line with so many recent events in not just MMA but also boxing, where I think fans who are not actively scoring the round by round get a cognitive bias that we're all humans susceptible to, and that's recency bias. Kai Kara France won, in my opinion, round 4 and 5 clearly. When you have a strong, back half of a fight, it sways a lot of people. Once again, this is a split decision, meaning the fight was close. There's nobody, I don't think, there's a lot of arguments all over the place, but I don't think you can argue that it wasn't a very close, highly contested fight where both fighters gave it to each other and had strict advantages in different moments. So with that being said, I get it. I get why people are up in arms about this, but for me personally, this isn't the robbery on the card. The robbery on the card, and sorry for skipping on to something else so far down the line, Jin Yu Frey got robbed by Elise Reed, and we're spending all of MMA media and MMA Twitter is spinning their wheels talking about this fight, which is just close, and the result came out probably not the way you wanted, when there's reality, a real sour judging situation, like I said earlier in the night. So with that being said, I don't have a problem with this result. I think it's just people don't actively score rounds. I do have individual gripes, specifically with Chris Lee, but I often do. There's the 4th round, like not that's wrong. And I see that's the kind of stuff that get people going, get people upset, and I can see their argument. For me, I always joke that Sal Diamato is my uncle. I wish he was. But me and Uncle Sal see eye to eye for once. Once a year, me and him have the same scorecard, and I guess it's this fight. So all that being said, I don't really get the outrage. I don't really get all the effort on arguing on this fight. It was a main event. Both guys are highly skilled. It was back and forth. And you could have had a draw, but someone's got to win, someone's got to lose. This is our sport. And I think the more popular fighter, the fighter that a lot of people have emotion for, is Kai Kara France. And you mix all that together, and now you got arguments on the internet. And that's my take.
Well, with the reason why I think there's not much controversy surrounding the Jin Yu Frey fight with Elise Reed is because all the judges' scorecards were the same, exactly the same. They gave the first round to Jin, and then they gave the second and third round to Elise Reed. And when you see something like that, it's consistent, right? And that's what you want from judges. You want consistency. Maybe if the wrong fighter won, it's still consistency, right? But in this fight, there's no consistency, right? You look at the 4th round. That's the round that everybody's looking at. Sicko, you look at it. You look at Chris Lee's scorecard, and he scores it for Albazi. And then you got the other 2 judges scoring it for Kai Kara France. And it seems like round 3 and round 4 are probably the most clear-cut rounds for each fighter, right? Round 3, you got to give it to Amir Albazi. He took the back, almost finished the fight, almost choked him out. Even though Kai Kara France escaped and actually ended the round in a good position, still Amir Albazi won that round. The 4th round, it was clear Kai was, dominating on the feet. He was landing more. If you look at the numbers, and the numbers don't tell the whole story, but if you look at it, it was 25 strikes to 3 or something like that. If those 3 strikes rocked Kai, I could see Amir Albazi winning that round, but Kai probably won that round clearly. Sicko, what do you think of the rounds and just the fight overall?
I mean, yeah, that's the issue, right? It's just Chris Lee's scorecard with the 4th round. It's crazy that Sal Diamato, Mike Bell, they both had different fighters, but I can agree with both of them. I'm not mad at either one, and they had the 2 different fighters winning the fight. But Chris Lee, it's the 4th round. It's like you were saying, that's always the issue. And if I'm not mistaken, it was a lot of the same thing with the Aljamain and Henry, right? Where I think the majority of people thought Aljamain won, but even the scorecards were like, wait, how did you give Henry that round? Or it's just the same thing. It's like you said, consistency. What is the criteria? How are these guys all scoring these rounds? What are they putting more emphasis on? Is it damage? Is it strike totals? Is it control time? Is it controlling the center of the octagon? What are you looking at specifically? And we see it time and time again, where even leg kicks. How many times do we talk about leg kicks and saying, do they know what a check leg kick is? Like, do they know what the difference is between a check kick and not check? And how much credit are they giving a non-check leg kick? Because those add up. But there might be some judges that are just like, those are nothing. Where it's like, no, those might be significant. So getting these guys on the same page is what needs to happen. Me personally, I had 1, 4, and 5 to Kai, so I had it exactly the way Mike Bell had it. We had it scored the same. But again, Saudi Amato scorecards, I had no idea who won the first round. So if you want to give the first 3 to Albazi, I'm cool with that. But that's the biggest issue, right? Is round 4. So ultimately, do I feel like the right guy won? I don't know. I really didn't know who won the first round. I gave it a Kai, but I'm not upset. I'm not calling robbery. I don't think that Albazi or I don't think Kai got robbed in this fight. But the issue just lies with Chris Lee, and Chris Lee's had a couple very weird scorecards lately, so not surprised.
Well, Chris Lee and Sal Diamata are like Dumb and Dumber, right? They're whenever they're together, they're just dumb and dumber, right? They're the dumb and dumber. I don't know, dumb and dumbest. I don't know what it is. It's something's wrong with them, right? Chris Lee and Sal Diamato. What is wrong with these guys? These guys are always in the headlines. You know what's wrong, J-Spec?
I have a theory, and my theory is, okay, half a step to the side. Nevada, my proud state, is supposed to be the fight capital of the world, the gold standard of commissions, and we lead the way in so many top level fights, world championships by a mile. We have a very small group of judges. I don't know the total number, but I've go to a lot of fights around town. I see the same people over and over and over. You guys watch fights all the time. Uncle Sal is sometimes across the country in different countries judging fights. I mean, why is it such a small pool of individuals? And then on top of that, the bigger problem within that is some of these judges are doing double duty where they're judging boxing, which has a total different criteria than MMA. And they're doing the same thing. And I know we've heard this argument plenty of times, but there's no way you can't tell me that you condition yourself over and over and over to watch combat fights and judge a certain way, and you can just instantly interchange the rule set or the way you go. Like octagon control means nothing now. In the previous era, it was a thing. In boxing, still a thing. So now you're asking these, be respectful, older judges. They're older. I'm gonna just say that like that. They're older judges to now change the way they think from sport to sport, week to week, weekend to weekend. That is a flaw on not enough pool of judges. They're just not in a big enough pool, and you're asking them to do too much. And just like our own personal taste, we get set in our ways, and I think that's what happens. And these are the results we get.
Yeah.
Well, judges are judges, man, and the commissions are the ones responsible for putting these judges in those seats. And I feel like the commission is a joke. It's a clown show. We don't know who is who. We just know the names. They have no accountability. This is the same thing we talk about, right? It's just the same thing we talk about all the time, and they're screwing these fighters over, especially with money. And a lot of these guys are getting paid pretty good amounts, right, to win. You know what I mean? Like, show, yes, win. That's why you need a flat fee, man. You need a flat fee. If they win or they lose, they get the same amount of money, right? Because they're not going to fight any different. All these people talking about they're going to not fight any different. They're not going to fight as much. Come on, seriously? Really?
Yeah.
The window of opportunity for a fighter is so small, and you're saying that they're just going to not fight enough, and they're not going to fight to win fights. You win fights, you go up the rankings, and you get paid more. Why would you not want to win? You know what I mean? Like, why would
if you win in spectacular fashion, your social media blows up.
Exactly.
Think Jorge becomes Jorge without the flying knee.
Exactly.
Nope.
Right. It just makes no sense of like the arguments that people have. Yeah, man, I thought it was tied up going into the 5th round, 2-2. And in the 5th round, you clearly see every judge gave it to Kai Kara France. So in my eyes, Kai Kara France should have won that fight. And, he's coming off a title fight. I don't think a lot of people realize that, right? Like, he's coming off a title fight almost a year ago. You remember he was supposed to fight Alex Perez. Alex Perez, I believe he pulled out, and then they rebooked him for Amir Albazi in this fight. And, man, I don't know where that puts him now. Amir Albazi, he had never fought anybody in the top 15. Kai Kara France was his first opponent in the top 15, and he wins this by controversial decision. At the end of the day, nobody cares if you won by controversial decision, especially, you know, the promotion. All they care about is you won because that's what they can promote, right? So now, where do you put Amir Albazi in the rankings? What was Kai in the rankings? Let me.
Isn't he
right?
3? I think he was 3.
Yeah, he's number 3, right? Amir Albazi. It's crazy how Amir Albazi was number 7 in the rankings, but he's never beaten anybody in the rankings.
That division,
Isn't that
man.
nuts?
It's just that division is not
Whoa.
very deep.
It's nuts, man. It's nuts that he was number 7. So now, if he's number 7 and he beats number 3, do you put him at number 3? Do you leapfrog him over all these other people? Does that make sense to you? You know what I mean?
That's usually how it goes, though, right?
Yeah.
Like typically, if you beat somebody much higher in the rankings, Sean O'Malley. Obviously, I know Albazi isn't getting the promotional push that Sean O'Malley gets, but same thing with him, right? What was he, 13th or something when he fought Hyon, and they jumped him to 1. Then
And now he's 2.
there, usually, I mean, what's his name? Marab, yeah. He obviously jumps him, but they're gonna jump him. I think probably not to 2, but I think he's just gonna take his spot at 3.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's weird. To me, I'm not really looking at the rankings too much. I just look at this fight, and Amir, man, if he could get you to the ground, he's a major threat, you know, and he's got a chin. You know, he took a lot of the shots that Kai Kara France threw at him, and Kai's known to knock dudes out, right? And he took those shots. He still needs a lot of work, but he showed that he belongs in the top 10. I believe fairly, right, in this fight. He went 5 rounds with the guy that just fought for the title against Brandon Moreno, right? It's just, you got to give him the respect, even though you didn't. Even if you think he didn't win the fight, you got to give him the respect that he deserves.
Still look
Yeah,
good.
he still looked good, man. Yeah, man. So let's get to some of these comments. Herc said he's going back to the Reed fight. Says, bro, Reed won round 2 and 3. That's what the judges thought. He said Kai won 3-2 all day, maybe 4-1. Yeah, I could argue. You could argue 4-1 as well, right? 1-2 and 4-5. You know what I mean? That 1-2 is the one where people are just like, which one? Who won which round? But you know, one of them won 1 round a piece, right? That's the toss-up. The main event holds more weight, especially when it's 3 versus 7. Reed versus Fry isn't as important, other than they were fighting for their jobs. That's definitely
important to them.
That's pretty important.
Yeah, there is pretty important, right? M also says the reason there is few judges is because there isn't money in it.
Wrong.
Well,
the Nevada Commission takes 10% of the gate. Wrong.
10% of the 10%,
gate. 10%. So,
damn.
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money in the commission, boys. Don't
commission, but the judges, right? So like 10% doesn't go to the judges; it goes to the commission,
right?
Yeah.
And
so the judges get the trickle down effect. So I don't know what the judges make, but
man, imagine.
I'm
like
assuming
how much
they're not
money
getting
that
paid
is.
peanuts. You know,
they're working every weekend with the best seats in the house. I don't pay me $50. I'll go do it. Like
maybe
I've been
you
watching
should.
my whole life. Like I got this. Watch.
Maybe you should. Maybe you should just jump into it, man. You live in Vegas. You should do like a inside investigation on how hard is it to get into the judge's seat as somebody that wants to actually become a judge. I think that's a perfect like a
expose.
What is it called?
We'll do that.
Not even expose. It's like an undercover project for yourself.
Yeah, I mean it's harder than it's harder than trying to get water out of a balloon that's already inflated. It is tough. I don't want to go too far because I don't want to get whacked, but let's just say it still runs like old Vegas, if you know what I mean. 3 letters. Wink, wink.
M is saying, how can Albazi be next in line after that? He's not next in line. I'm just saying that he belongs. He belongs in the top 10. He's definitely not next in line. There's so many other guys. There's Brandon Royval. Pantoja's about to fight. You know what I mean? You still got Figueiredo in the mix. You know, like there's so many other guys, you know, that are just.
I mean, but you never know, right? It's just all about what we've already seen. Like if the UFC has an opportunity to put a fight together that we haven't seen yet, they're going to do it. They're not just going to keep recycling the same fight. I mean, just think about that division in general. It's been held up for so long because we saw 4 fights between the same 2 guys. Like they're going to look for different fights.
The other thing is, it's about, and I don't want to just put it all on Dana, but we've seen it in the past where Dana's like, I don't think I'm cool with that decision. I don't like it. And he puts the fighter who lost in kind of a favorable matchup to reclaim, what he had. So that's also, I mean, I don't know what his take on this is. I didn't see any of that. Maybe he already spoke on it, but
I think that Kai Kara-France is going to match up in his next fight where he's just going to obliterate somebody. That's what's going to happen, most likely. He's still going to fight on a main card. You know what I mean? Like, that's the position he's in right now. But I think he's going to get somebody that where he's just going to, knock their heads off. Right. And there's a lot of good matchups for him. Right. I think they should put the Alex Perez
fight back on. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was about to say.
mean,
They're just going to roll with that one. That was supposed to happen anyway.
Yeah, so like Perez, Matt Schnell, those are some matchups I think down. They're both in the top 10 still, right? So, that's what you need to do. You need to put that. Amir Albazi, he's going to get a tough matchup. You know what I mean? There's no easy fights anymore, man. He's going to get a tough matchup. Like, I think Mateus Nikolai, someone like that, could be a possible matchup for him.
The loser of the title fight, maybe.
Maybe, right? But he's going to get somebody. He's going to get a killer. Paul O'Costa says, bummed for Malarkey. We are always bummed for Malarkey, man. He's one of my faves. He was looking good until the TKO. He was looking really, really good. Let's get into that. Let's get into the Tajikistan's, like, their movement, right? Like Tajikistan's movement, with two of the guys debuting on the same night. You got Muin Ghafarov and Mohammed Naimov. Mohammed Naimov is the one that stepped in on like a week's notice to face, not even a week, dude. It was like 5 days or something like that. Notice to face off against Jamie Malarkey. Jamie Malarkey, he's down to fight anybody, and that can work against you, right? But he was looking good. Mohammed, he looked like he was fading, but whenever you have that knockout power like that and you're just swinging wild, and it's weird. Like Amir Albazi was kind of doing that for a bit too, where he was swinging wild and he was kind of catching Kai. But yeah, man, let's get into this little footage of it's crazy, dude. Like the amount of support that these dudes was getting. Look at that. That's what does it say? That's 2 a.m. or was it 3 a.m. or something like? Yeah, it says 3 a.m. in Tajikistan right now, and their fighters don't make the walk for another 2 hours. So it was like by 5 a.m. 5 a.m. right? Their fighters are fighting, right? Just imagine that support, and you're debuting in the UFC. That's pretty crazy, right? What do you think about that?
That's beautiful. First off, I love that. I love that. That is a clear sign that this 30-year journey we've been on is working, and people care, and they respect MMA as a real global world sport. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't really I think the only other Tajikistan athletes are probably in soccer, which I don't follow respectfully. So it's probably a big deal. Obviously, it's a big deal. They're up in the crack of dawn, ready for the action, and that is beautiful to see. Like I just said, it's awesome. Also, man, stole the show. I remember, we were doing our watch party, and I was full blown fanboy. I was just like, oh, like everybody was just screaming. It was a moment, and good. Like, hell yeah. Once going back to that point of world sport, this is I think we're about there. I think we're about there where we can say mixed martial artists from any portion of our beautiful planet Earth can come and win a fight. Like it is now there. And man, just big tip of the hat to Mr. Naimov. I mean, stole the show. He got the bonus as deserved. And just like you said, John, it was going to the script, and he said, nah, not today, man. Like, and good for him, because he fought in Contender Series and didn't win, right? And then fought a couple regional stuff, just staying in the game. And that's another lesson to, I'm sure, all athletes and all fighters. Be ready, be in shape, and you never know when you're going to get to have that moment, because you just went from, nah, you're not, sorry, not quite yet, to hell yeah, buddy, you just got a performance bonus and your home country is lining up in masses to support you. So this is honestly what it's all about.
Entering this card, right, it seemed like Muin Ghafarov was getting all the hype, right? He was getting all the hype. He was getting all the praise over Mohammed Naimov. And Naimov is the one who went in there and starched a tough fighter in the Jamie Malarkey. And Muin Gafurov, he was the one that was kind of dominated in many ways by John Castaneda. Sicko, were you on the hype train of Muin Gafurov? Like, this seemed like a lot of dudes online, they were loving him before the fights actually happened.
I honestly wasn't, like, even in the league. Shout out J Specs League once again. I did not pick him, to be honest. I went with Castaneda. I've seen Castaneda too many times. I just wasn't familiar enough with him, I guess. But yeah, I didn't pick him. I wasn't part of the hype train. So we'll see how he comes back from that loss, because I know, like you said, he had a lot of hype on him. I guess I wasn't as familiar with him, and I guess that benefited me.
Yeah, and also Buin, man, Gafurov, I think I seen him fight for one championship and contender series. But I don't really remember much about his style, to be honest with you. But I've heard his name being thrown around for a few years now. And yesterday was like kind of like my first time watching him and remembering like what exactly the style that he brings. And his style is very sloppy, man. It was. I'm just gonna say it, right? Seems like he has really good cardio. His striking is pretty wild, right? Grappling is good, but John Castaneda, man, I think he showed more in this fight. Like, he showed a really leveled up version of himself against a dangerous guy that everybody was hyping up. You know what I mean? I'm interested to see what like John Castaneda can do now, because he's actually a full-time fighter. Like, before this fight, he actually became a full-time fighter. Like, he doesn't work. He trains all the time. It's crazy that we still talk about this, about
That's
guys
mental.
at the highest level. It's like, oh, he became a full-time. I was just interviewing Jimmy Flick, and he was telling me, like, ahead of this fight coming up, he's become a full-time fighter for the first time, which is wild, because Jimmy Flick retired after his debut in the UFC and came back. And yeah, it's wild to me that fighters are still talking about how became full-time fighters, and they hype that up on the broadcast too. Like, yo,
Yeah.
you guys are the promotion that contracts these guys to fight, and you guys are hyping up that they become a full-time fighter now. It's fucking wild. But
Yeah, like how is the UFC roster the absolute best fighters in the world, and simultaneously 1/3 of the group is got part-time or full-time outside jobs? Like,
yeah, it's not like they want to, you know what I mean? It's like they're kind of forced to do it.
Got to,
It's,
yeah.
it's pretty
oh
wild.
yeah.
We got Slasher saying Malarkey is done with for me. You think so? You know, you're giving up on Malarkey already?
I mean, he was
Yeah,
looking all right.
he got caught, you know what I mean? And the stoppage was like, I'm not mad. I'm not saying the stoppage was like wrong. I'm saying like Herb Dean is like, are you stopping the fight or not? Like, you're just standing there.
Yeah.
What's he doing? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't know what I want to do here.
It's
At
wild,
any
man.
point, did we miss a fight somewhere down the line where like Herb Dean ate one? Because like you said, he's so tentative now. Like, stop it or don't.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's weird.
Do you remember
Paulo
Herb Dean
Costa
being like that before the Robbie Lawler fight?
Yeah, that was kind of like a turning point right there.
Where like he started becoming a little unsure of himself.
Yeah, mentally, he's just, and he's always like running for some reason. Like, he's running way more than everybody else.
Shout out Den, our boy, calls it the herb hop. Every time he has to jump in on something, it is hilarious to see.
Paulo Costa saying, people always talk about athletes putting their country on the map, but these guys are literally putting their country on the map. I didn't even know Tajikistan existed until yesterday. That's true, man. I bet you a lot of people didn't realize Tajikistan existed until yesterday. And yeah, man, now you got to remember them. They actually have 4 fighters in the UFC. Let me see.
I had to explain it during the podcast. Someone was like, where the hell is Tajikistan? I was like, hey, you know that part of Asia that everybody forgets is still Asia because it's like west of the part you think is? It's over there.
There's a lot of Asian countries that people don't realize are Asian countries. That's what's weird, right? But we're not getting into geography right now, but I'm just saying. Yeah, man. So Tajikistan, watch out for these guys. Watch out for Mohammed Naimov. I think he's gonna drop down to featherweight because that's where he actually belongs. And he looked like he's gonna be a terror, but you never know, man. Some of these guys come in and get these like shock knockouts or finishes, and then they actually go and fight guys that are legit prepared for them. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it doesn't work out so well. So we'll see what happens with them. Let's move on to Jim Miller, man. 23 seconds KO. Like, I didn't even think that was going to happen, to be honest with you. I was just kind of like watching the fight through the side of my eye. And next thing you know, Jesse Butler is crumpled along the fence. And Jim Miller gets a crazy knockout, man. That was insane. Sicko, what'd you think of Jim Miller, man? This dude never.
Jim Miller was impressive. That was awesome. That was great to see, especially from a veteran. Jesse Butler should have never been in there. Like, short notice, came in late. I think this was like his second replacement, right? It was like the replacement to the replacement for Jim Miller. Jesse Butler comes in. He came in off of a win streak. I'm not saying he's a bum, or I don't want to put him down at all. He came in off of a win streak from Fury FC. But before the little win streak he had in Fury, he had 3 losses in Rite of Passage and Friction FC. So to come in and face Jim Miller is like, it's a little too much, but we've seen the UFC do this. It's kind of like, hey, scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. We'll guarantee you a couple more fights, a little bit easier, right, guys that aren't this experienced. I'm not going to say just outclassed, but the level of experience. I mean, you're talking about Jim Miller here. Like, he has big Gleison Tibau, Charles Oliveira, Thiago Alves, like that level of experience to fight somebody who, without being on a short day's notice, probably wouldn't be in the promotion. Tough night for Jesse Butler. Like, credit to him. This might have been his only chance. He's 31 years old. This might have been his one and only opportunity to get into the UFC. But God, did he pay for it. And congrats to Jim Miller. Awesome to see him get a win.
Yeah, he paid for it, man. Devastatingly. M was pointing out that Butler is a featherweight facing Miller, who has fought at welterweight recently.
He should have been in there. He just should have been in there.
Jim Miller, man, he's to be honest with you, man, Jim Miller is like, he has exceeded all expectations. And I think he has exceeded what Cowboy has done in his career. So I think he's a Hall of Famer without a doubt.
He beat Cowboy most recently.
Exactly. So
yeah, I don't think anybody like 10 years ago, if we would have said like who's still there 10 years from now, still getting wins, no one would have said Jim Miller. So I completely agree with that.
I think Jim Miller, the moment he places his gloves down, and I hope it's still not for a while because he obviously still got it. The second the gloves touch the mat, somebody should come around with that golden Hall of Fame jacket. Like, instant. There should be no lag, no transition between the two, you know? Yeah, Jim, we love him. But, dude, you're right, Sicko. This guy paid full price plus retail to be in the league. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of these, you know, young dudes got to do. But let's not take any, and this goes into like fans or people who don't train, people never sparred, never even been to like a basic class. There is real life consequences to this, and there is very serious technique where a man who is skilled and trained just like Butler, I'm sure he's a good fighter and can beat up a lot of people. But I mean, Jim Miller did the old jumped in the pool and didn't get wet. I mean, he slipped, he moved just enough, and pop, like, and just folded him almost Tank Abbott Nelmark style. I mean, knee behind the back Gonzaga Crow Cop style. It was just like art. I mean, I almost lost my voice screaming at that fight, I'll be honest.
Let's move on. Actually, before we move on to the next fight, you know, I wanted to get into the guy that was supposed to fight Jim Miller, which was Jared Gordon, right? And there's a lot of controversy surrounding that as well, right? Like, he shot himself in the foot, so to say, in the pre-fight pressers, and then Dana White, he comes out after the fights and just trashes Jared Gordon, saying that you're not a fucking doctor. You know what I mean? And I think they were pretty pissed off, right? And if you look at the history of Dana White and Jared Gordon, Dana's not really a big fan of Jared Gordon. I think it goes all the way back to the Paddy Pimblett fight, man. He says a horrible game plan by Gordon. The ref let it happen, and he threw the fight away. Basically, he's saying like he lost, you know what I mean, like the fight. You know, he didn't even like praise Paddy, which he does a lot. Okay, now let's go back to him pulling out, right? Because that's where the controversy is. What'd you think of this, Sicko? Like, he said in the pre-fight press that he had a minor concussion, and then what did he do? He cured himself.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, it's two things can be true. Like, one, Dana, I'm just tired of him always contradicting himself time and time again. But also, Jared, come on, man. Like, we got to be smarter than that. We have to be smarter. Like, maybe you did have a legit concussion, you should have been pulled, because if you're dumb enough to come out pre-fight and say that you had that injury, but for Dana to be like, we've always taken guys off immediately if they ever said anything. Last time I checked, when Conor broke his leg in half, he said, oh yeah, I sent these x-rays to the UFC. They knew that I had fractures going into this fight. I remember them pulling that one or canceling that or rescheduling that. So we're not going to pretend like anytime anything's happened, we've always canceled a fight. That's just not true. But in this case, like, I can't really put too much blame on the organization. Like, if you're any fighter out there, you can't, one, safety first, think about your safety. But if you're going to withhold something to the UFC, don't come out pre-fight and then be like, oh, by the way, I had it. But we've seen it time and time again, right? That's not new. If Gordon fought and he had a concussion beforehand, that he joins the list of thousands of fighters that have said they fought right after having a concussion, or they fought with a broken hand, or they fought with messed up shoulders, TJ Dillashaw. Like, it just joins a long list of things. I think Dana was just more pissed off of like, hey, keep it to yourself. Like, if you already got to this point, don't screw it up for us now. I think he was just upset that he actually said that.
Well, why? He's always talking about fighter safety. He's like, he even said it during the interview, like, fighter safety is the most important thing, and blah, blah. If the fighter safety is the most important thing, then why was he even booked for the fight? Shouldn't the doctors be in charge? Shouldn't there be pre-fight medicals going on to make sure the guy is not suffering from anything, and then he's fully healthy to take the fight?
That's a good question, right? Like, do they even check to see if a fighter's had concussions beforehand? Because if
they could have had it during camp,
right? If they checked and he's good, then anything he says is not important at that point.
Exactly, right? Because a lot of fighters say things that are completely false, and just to hype fights and just hype just create narratives.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? All the time. So it's you could take it, and this tweet right here. You had Mookie Alexander. He says, has Nevada stopped releasing medical suspensions, because it seems like they actually have. I see nothing from any UFC Vegas shows, pay-per-views, or Apex this year. And then Nolan King, my guy, he says, yes, we all have access to now is to see the status of licenses, suspended or not suspended. We can't see durations or reasons for suspensions. What? This just goes back to the commissions, man. Like, these commissions, what are they doing? Like, what kind of incompetence is going on over there? They don't care about the fighters, man. That's to me, that's what it is. They don't care. They're just taking it like it's nothing. It's like, oh yeah, whatever. There's nobody really ruling over us.
Yeah,
so we can do whatever we want.
As long as they cover their own ass, like, legally, then anything else is like, it'll be all right.
That information should be available to the promotion. It should be available to the managers. It should be available to the fighters, right? From what I saw in another tweet from a manager that manages a lot of UFC fighters, he said that the organization, the promotion, tells them how long they've been suspended, not the actual commission, which is weird, right? Like, why would the promotion tell you how long you've been suspended for?
That's weird.
It's weird. Like, isn't there paperwork that needs to be done after the fight with the commission to make sure everything's, you cross your T's and dot your I's and all of that stuff, and make sure you get paid?
That wouldn't make any sense.
Exactly.
I haven't read it recently, but I don't know when this change happened, because I used to read the medical suspensions all the time. It was very clear, and for how long. The only way you could circumvent it is to go through, medical process and test, pass the test and shorten your suspension. But that is really, really weird. Take a half step back to Dana. Dana always says his number one thing is fighter safety, because that's what he's supposed to say. Dana White is a fight promoter. His number one obligation is not fighter safety. His number one obligation is selling fights and keeping the circus going, minimizing the amount of fights that get canceled per card, because some always fall off. not always, but 90% of the time, at least 1 or 2 fights get dismissed. So that's his job. His job is to keep the circus moving forward, not fighter safety. If you think Dana White's keeping tabs on total knockout sustained in a calendar year, he's not.
No, and you're completely right. Like, just to continue on that point, Rob, like, Dana's not pissed off because Gordon was putting himself at greater risk. Dana's pissed off because Gordon now forced them to have to do something that they didn't want to have to do, which is replace him. That's what he's pissed off about. You messed up the promotion. We have to do extra work now. That's why I'm pissed off. You could have put yourself at greater risk. Oh my God, how dare you do this to yourself? Like, no.
You made the brand look bad for just a moment. And
that's
that
what he
is
cares about more so.
Big no-no for Uncle Dana. Big no-no.
Yeah, man. Here's the tweet right here, right? So Nolan King says I read the tweet earlier about how, you don't have access to that information. And then Daniel Rubenstein says, yeah, neither can we. We just get told by the promoter what suspensions the fighters have and what is needed for it to be cleared. I've lobbied for a limited login to the ABC database to check my fighter suspensions and licenses and was denied. That is very fishy, man. And it's not just the UFC. That's the whole commission. Like, for every promotion, that could be Bellator, that could be for PFL, right? It could be regional promotions. So the commission, these guys, man, what are they doing? They're not doing anything. They're collecting checks, cashing them, and gambling them away at the craps table. That's what they're doing.
I mean, think about how many fighters have came out and talked about fighting while injured, even just recently, from Francis Ngannou during Cyril Gane, TJ Dillashaw. Like, so what is the protocols? Like, what are you checking? Is it just don't ask, don't tell? Like, as long as you don't tell us about your injuries going in, we're not going to check. Like, what are we really looking at if we're going to be this hard on fighter safety? Dana, if fighter safety is your number one thing and this is how passionate you are about it, like, work with these commissions to get better, to say, hey, Francis fighting on one leg, TJ fighting with one shoulder, Gordon possibly have gone in there with a concussion beforehand. Like, eliminate that.
Well, I'm not trying to defend Uncle Dana, but these fighters have a lot riding on the line. We were just talking a lot, earlier, and these fighters that we just mentioned, they're getting paid a lot to fight. So you think they're not going to show up for 6 figures or more? They are, and they don't care if one arm doesn't work. These guys are fighters. Like John has talked about plenty of times. He's been with them, training with them. Like, they are the different
warriors.
They're warriors. They're different than us. They don't handle pain and stuff differently. So man, it is messed up. And I want to just throw this out there. The commissions, and it seems like, I hate to bring it up, USADA, these are just like, whenever things are inconvenient for the UFC or don't really go their way, you have 2 perfect interchangeable pieces. Blame these fools or blame these fools. Look at them. It's not ever the UFC. I mean, when is it ever the UFC's fault? The only time Dana White and the UFC takes blame for something is poor scheduling. That's it. So,
yeah.
Well,
this was the UFC though, right?
Mm-hmm.
The UFC is the one who pulled Gordon, not the commission itself. I have no idea. Because in the post-fight press conference, Dana kept saying we. He was like, yeah, we pulled him. Like, we replaced him, whatever. We pulled him from the card. But I'm like, we, the UFC, or we, the commission? Because now, why is the UFC stepping in to do something that the commission should have done? If that was the case, I don't know if he's saying we, but it was really the commission. And again, like you said, it's just perfect little pieces to put the blame on, right? Because the UFC has nothing to do with anything until they're upset enough about it. When it comes to Conor and will he fight, won't he fight and win, and the testing pool, it's like, hey, we don't know anything. That's all on USADA and Conor. We don't know a damn thing about that. That's not our job. When it comes to Gordon, it's like, no, we pulled him because he did this, and we care about fighter safety more than anything. I can go on.
It's funny. It's funny when, like, you remember when the whole situation where the commission said that they're going to fine fighters for competing injured, right? Yeah. And then we've had many fighters come out since then saying that they're injured. I think going into a fight and after a fight, immediately after the fight, right? And what about that one situation? I think it's when Sam Hughes, when she won, and she admitted that her boyfriend bet all this money on her, right? And that, we haven't heard nothing about that, right? That kind of gets swept under the rug as well. And that's a policy that the UFC put in, right? So the UFC, they probably, I guess there's nothing wrong with that now. You know what I mean? And what's going on with James Krause, right? Like, I guess a federal investigation. You know, those investigations take a long time. So I guess he's sitting in federal investigation, but still, like, there's no updates on that. There's nobody in the journalism world that has any kind of insider information about what's going on with that. Like, it's just very, very, I don't know. It's very, very weird, right? And maybe it's because it's inconvenient for them to deal with it. But I think if James Krause is done wrong, you know, he's gonna come out and go, you know, scorched earth.
Yeah, he'll turn as fast as anyone's ever turned.
Exactly.
You'll have a laundry list of who did what and how much quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, for sure, and you know, he can implicate a lot. You know what I mean? And you know, M is saying that the commissions only care about making money for themselves. That's what it seems like nowadays, right? And where is it? Well Rider 3001. I'm raging at the Ultimate Fixing Championships, man. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on too. It's like, you know, the gambling is a big aspect of fighting, especially the UFC, because UFC is consistent, right? They have a show every weekend, so there's money being made every weekend on the books, on the sports books, right? And people are starting to point to that, right? And that's not a good thing when people are speculating on the judges and intertwining gambling into the mix. And you know, I think in the NBA recently there had been like some kind of issues with the referee where they had some video on Sicko. Was there a video of like a referee when a player missed a shot and the referee was mad, like on the court? Like they had the video of him. Like
there's a lot of stuff with refs that weren't supposed to have. There's one ref that had like a Twitter account that he accidentally it was his burner, and they found out that it was his burner. There's been, I mean, basketball's been like that for a long time. Everybody remembers the Lakers King series, and
now it's bleeding into MMA. It's gotten to that
follow the money, man. You follow the money, you'll follow corruption. It's really not that hard. Like the more money a promotion organization anything's making, you got to start focusing a lot more on the corruption that's going to come and follow it as well.
All right, I got a couple more topics, you know, outside the event that I want to get into, but before we get into those, any performances that stuck out to you, J-Spec, that you want to kind of, you know, talk about before we move on?
Someone near and dear to my heart, Felipe Lins, getting that dub for opening the show. You know, I like that guy a lot. I consider him a really good human being. So I was really personally happy. That was like my heart was invested in the fight for that one. So I'm glad the outcome was what it was. And I guess another fight that no one's really talking about, because I guess it went the way it was expected, but I was still sad to see. As a longtime fan of Amir Albazi, kind of sucks to see him lose. But those are me being a fan. Just thinking back on those fights were you know, on my mind. But other than that, I was totally entertained. But let's not miss the women, right? I'm sorry, I'm blanking.
Silva Sosa.
Yes, thank you, Sicko, for the assist there. Gross and amazing at the same time. So these kind of cards, we say, Sicko, we you know, we watch all these fights together, almost all of them together. And dude, like these fight cards, a lot of people are like, I'm only gonna watch the last 3 or 4. And then you miss some leg snapping action, some brutal knockouts, some crazy upsets. Yeah. Enjoy the fights, everybody. They're on your TV. You don't have to wait 1 month or 2 months or 3 months in between like we used to have to do in the old school, right, John? So yeah, enjoy them every week that you have them. That's, I guess, my message.
All right, Hype MMA says Karine Silva looked great, so young, like you mentioned earlier. Sicko, anybody that you want to get some shine to?
That was the fight that I was going to talk about with Silva and Souza. Another situation very similar to Jesse Butler. Souza probably shouldn't have been in there. Late replacement fight, doesn't have a very decorative background. She goes in there against somebody who looks like a destroyer in Silva. Everyone just kept talking about her finishability, and that is not a way to get finished. Leg lockers are scary. That one looked disgusting. You take the short notice fight. You know they're going to help you out. They're going to offer you some fights later on. If you take this short notice one, that's your opportunity to get into the UFC where you may not have been able to if you didn't take this short notice. But now how long are you out?
I also want to credit Silva like I'm just interpreting what I saw based on just what I was watching. She was like emotionally disturbed after the fight. Like she looked like she felt very guilty about the outcome of that
Well,
knee bar. So
she would have let go without her tapping. Like
right.
she said after the fight, I let go because I heard and felt the pop, and I let go. Like even if Souza didn't even tap, she would have let go over. Like she knew immediately, like, oh man, this girl's leg is destroyed. I mean, that was bad. That was a bad one.
Yeah, it was.
Well, actually earlier in the card, there was a guy chasing leg locks and he got knocked out doing
Yeah,
the exact same thing. So, what I mean? Like,
Lacerda and Black Shear, I believe. Lacerda was the
exactly.
one who was chasing a leg lock and got beat up.
He
It was
got
like, have you ever
smashed.
seen that? It wasn't like a meme. It was a picture of like the snake around the saw, and it was like your own stubbornness, where the snake's like hurting itself,
Yeah.
but it keeps squeezing because it's in pain, so it wants to fight back, and it keeps squeezing the saw. That was
Yeah.
Lacerda. He was the snake, and Blackshear was the saw in this situation. Like, give up on the leg lock, please. If it doesn't work, give up on it. How do you just take that many punches to the face and you're just like, nope? Like you could keep punching me in the face. I'm going to get this leg lock eventually.
Yeah, man, he was going after it. Silva, I mean, she could do that, but it only works. The percentages is very low, man. Nowadays, you see that's why we've never seen a leg lock guy win titles and defend titles and stuff like that. It's just because it's just too risky, man. You got to know when to let go and reposition yourself. But Karine Silva, man, she like pulled guard basically, and it was in that position immediately, and then she got the tap right. So
Yeah, she was it was a half guard situation, right? She just sat back. I mean,
yeah,
that's what they always say in jiu-jitsu, right? Why pass guard when you could jump to a leg lock? So
yeah. Well, I mean, it could work this time, but it might not work next
yeah,
time. We'll see.
yeah,
Let's talk about some big news from the last week or so. Is Tough 31. You guys watched the first episode. I just wanted to get you guys' reactions. We'll start with you, Jay Specht, on the first show, on the first episode of the show, Tough 31. What'd you think of it?
Finally, I'm back to watching the Tough series again. It's been about 5 years since I've given a shit about that series. I'll be honest. It lost all momentum, all importance to me. But now, and it's not just Connor. Let me say Connor is the 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 initial catalyst of it, but the concept of pros versus prospects, or veterans versus prospects, excuse me. I think that's a good format. And of course, we talked about this previously, but I'll say it again. We have the heel and we have the face. We have the black hat and the white hat, and this is a good construction for the show. Also, the pacing of the show feels better to me than years past. I don't know if it's just one episode. I don't want to go too far with it, but it wasn't so much on like, let me talk about all the drama in my life and how I got here and all that stuff. It was just kind of more concise. And of course, the fight itself, Roosevelt Roberts just boom, game over like real quick. So I'm in for the rest of the season. The only complaint I have is that we get strung along week after week, and now I'm on that cycle, and I'm gonna ride it till the end. So I'm very pleased with the product. I had high hopes for it, and in my opinion, it's delivered. So sign me up for Tough, at least for this season.
There you go. Sicko, what'd you think?
yeah. In the words of Connor, sign me up for sure. I was excited for it when it got announced. Like Rob knows, as soon as if Connor's on a microphone, if Connor's mic'd up, I need to see it injected into my veins. I have to see Connor just verbally destroy whoever it is. In this case, it's going to be Michael Chandler. I'm assuming there's going to be a lot more of it. Even just a trailer of it when it came out, when he's talking to Michael Chandler and he's like, yeah, you'll do as you're told. I'm just like, another perfect classic line there.
Which is unfair to Mike, but I think they're giving Mike a fair chance by letting him do so much outside promotion, because I guess there's an unedited version of that clip where Mike had a comeback to that comeback. But the producers, you got to remember, the producers are going to edit this show to make it go one way, right? There's an A side and a B side to this, so just
and also the format, like you said, perfect format, right? Because these guys that are coming into Tough or coming into the Contender Series, a lot of times they come in and they get those guys anyway, right? Their first fight in the UFC, a lot of times is those veteran dudes. They either have to come in and step in on short notice, Jim Miller, Butler, as we talked about, or it's just guys who are kind of slipping a little bit, but they're older, they're veterans, they've been there a long time. So here comes this young guy that we're not sure of. So let's see where you're at in this case. So we're already seeing it before they even get to the UFC. We're being able to see it in Tough. And yeah, Robert's like experience, man. Experience matters a lot.
I like the format that they have right now with the veterans and prospects, and I think that that's what they should do moving forward. Um, to be honest with you, I think that you should fight to get into the house, though. I think veterans should fight other veterans, not like on the first day, but like ahead of time before they start filming the show. They have them fight, and then now you got all that content that you could play on the first episode to show how they ended up in this spot, and then you push these guys to fight each other, right? The prospects and the veterans. To be honest with you, I like this format, but I just don't like that they're just using the same kind of like style of editing for every episode. It's not something that I enjoy anymore. I mean, it was cool for the first 15 years, right? But now it's like, okay, let's try something different. I wish they would like kind of have the veterans like go over like their experiences in the octagon and like what kind of struggles that they went through during their time in the UFC, and and kind of give that perspective. And then you get the prospects perspective that has never been in the UFC, that had to rise up the ranks wherever they were and give their story, and then how they're going to meet. Right. And like, I think that's important to give two sides. I would like to see that, more. The fight is the fight, right? That's what we're looking for anyway. So they're going to fight. And it's great to see that the veterans get another opportunity, and the they're not even prospects. It's like I call it, they're like unsigned hype, right? Basically. And so you decide who's unsigned hype that's actually a prospect. And the only way to become a prospect is to go in there and beat somebody that is a veteran, right? And then you become a prospect, right? The word prospect gets thrown around all the time, right? When you're not really a prospect, you are a prospect, right? Yeah. You're just young and you have a good record or a decent record, right? But yeah, like I enjoy this, and I wish they would go with this format every year and kind of tweak the editing style of it. And having one coach work with the prospects and one coach work with the veterans, I think that's a brilliant idea. I don't think you should mix it up. You know what I mean? But I have a feeling, man, that the veterans are going to dominate this season. This is my feeling.
You would assume, right? Just the experience factor of it. Like, these guys have seen, I mean, Roberts has fought some of the best, I believe he has a loss to Jim Miller, right? But anyway, yeah, like these guys, you would assume that the experience is going to take over. But we'll see. It seems like we're all ready to watch episode 2, so they're doing something right.
To your point, John, like that's something I didn't consider till I talked to somebody else about it. Not as hardcore as us. They're like, man, I was sitting through that whole episode and I was waiting for the fight. I wanted to see the fight, and the fight just ended in 8 seconds or however long it was. And he's like, that was it. Like, and I was like, oh, I didn't really. So when you're talking about having more fight footage along the way, that makes so much sense because for like, I hate to say it, perimeter fans. I don't like the word casual. For perimeter fans, not in the hardcore, they're like, that sucked, So I got you.
Yeah, you need to have more fight footage. Like, you need to show, like, okay, this guy got on the show, at least for the first couple episodes. Like, initially, how did they end up in this position, right? How did they end up in this position? Like, they fought this other veteran, and that's how they got here. This is their path. But you go from that, from nothing to that. I mean, it's kind of a weird. And they need to show more of like the interactions in the house. They have to show that more. They have to show more of the conflicts in the house, like people, causing problems. Because I heard that they cut all of that stuff out. I'm like, why? You're making a reality TV show.
They were getting a lot of like negative like pushback before, because before it was they were supplying them with so much alcohol, like they were pushing for you to do.
Well, now they can supply them with weed too, because it's legal.
Vegas, right? But that's what they were doing before. Like, they were really pushing hard. Like, they were trying to get them drunk. Like, we want to see you guys at your worst. When we want to see you guys blow up, like, we want that drama. Yeah. But it's like, all right, a lot of people don't like it, especially like real hardcore fight fans. Like, they're not really for it. So I think that's what they're trying to tailor it to. Is like, we really want to tailor it to guys who are a lot more hardcore fight fans than people who really love reality TV. because maybe we're not getting the reality TV viewers to view our show. That would be my only assumption, because it does make for great TV. Like, it is still a reality TV show at the end of the day. You would assume
It is,
that
and
you
you
would
want
tune in.
ratings. At the end of the day, you don't care about nothing else except for the ratings, right?
Yeah,
And
even if people hated the old, like, all the tough moments that you remember come from that type of nonsense, you know?
yeah, like what's one of
Let
the
me
best
bang, bro.
seasons?
Like,
Yeah, what's the best
everyone
seasons? Like
remembers
that season had some crazy moments, and like the fighters that came out of that season were were like just memorable figures. And then like the Rampage Rashad season, that was
kept
one of the
ripping the
best
door
seasons of
down.
all time,
Yeah,
dude.
man.
Just
In each
insane.
other's
Like
faces.
the real
You want nothing to
animosity.
do with Gents Pulver? Come over here.
Exactly. Yeah, it's you want those moments, right? That's what reality TV is about, and that's what you're tuning in for. Another thing that I noticed about this is I know kind of like why Conor is doing this. Of course, he wants to be on TV, but man, he wants to promote the shit out of his brands, and that's all over the place. And
Annoying.
it's not you can't miss it, right? And you know, like a lot of people talking about like, why is Conor over here doing this and over here? Because he's a promoter himself, dude. He's promoting Proper 12 and his what is it, his pub and all the other business ventures that he's got.
All that stuff.
He's a businessman, right?
I want to
I'm
ask
not
you fellas
businessman,
a
I'm
question.
businessman.
You guys take anything away from Conor not being there for first fight weigh-ins? Does that like
Because
that
he's
do
busy
something?
doing
It's a
business,
busy
man.
dude. That's a busy man, bro. Like, that's the whole reason why I'm still not sold a fight between the two of them. Like, I'm not that sure that they're actually going to fight at the end of this. Like, Conor's just so busy, dude. He's got so much stuff going on. The
Busy.
businesses that he has, like,
He's a businessman.
I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman.
Exactly,
That's
right?
Conor.
Like, that's who he is now. That's, you know, he still wants to fight. I'm pretty sure deep down inside he still wants to fight. But the dedication that is necessary, and I'm pretty sure he could get dedicated, but the dedication that's necessary for him to fight at the highest level is he doesn't have the time for that. He has to step away.
Chandler.
Yeah,
You know, Michael Chandler's going crazy.
It could be
for
against
this
Jim
fight.
Miller. It doesn't matter, right? It could be against Jim Miller. Like, he needs to dedicate himself like months, and to step away from
Not
the
just the
business
training
side.
camp.
Yeah, step away from the business side and everything that he's doing that's making him multi-million dollars a year, and even more beyond that. It's
And
you
even
gotta,
outside of like business, he enjoys his wealth. Like, he enjoys himself. It's not like he's business and then all right, train.
He's business and pleasure.
He's business, pleasure.
Mhm.
When I need a train, I'll train. Like, that is, you can't sustain.
Yeah,
that,
and you
especially at
guys
the top
in
level.
the chat say, like, what do you think? You think Conor's going to come back? Because look at Dana White. He kind of gave us a clue right here about Conor. He says these guys got a shitload of money, and it's hard to reel these guys back in and get them fired up to get in and fight. That is not good. That is not a good sign for this fight against Chandler, right? He's ready to fight anybody, right? So it doesn't really matter if it does matter if it's Conor, but I'm saying that's the number one on his list. But if he can't fight Conor, I'm guaranteed he's gonna fight somebody else. But will he still sit there and wait for Conor? Like, because I don't think this fight's gonna happen this year. Guaranteed.
If he gets pay-per-view points. If Chandler gets pay-per-view points to fight Conor, hell yeah, he'll wait. He will do whatever it takes to fight Conor if he's getting pay-per-view points. If he's not, then it doesn't really matter, right? But it seems like it matters. It seems like fighting Conor is going to be a huge pay bump for him, which is why he's so excited about this fight.
For sure. And Conor, like you said on the show, Conor said, you know, you'll do what you're told. Because why? The pay bump.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, once again, Conor's the A side, but I have hope. I have hope in Conor's ego, and like all great fighters, that ego draws them back into the fray. It's usually for a little too long. We've seen it in the great Muhammad Ali, where his people around him, his own ego, his own celebrity, kept bringing him back towards the end of his career when he probably shouldn't be fighting. I think Conor is no longer world title caliber. That's my personal opinion. That doesn't mean he sells out every arena in the land, but I think his ego at some point, because his last time out, we know what happened. He's a broken man. And I think that ego will get to him at some point, and he will re-enter the octagon. Now, like you said, John and Sigo, like when I don't know, but the ego and the gravity of that will suck him back into the fight.
Let's get some of these comments. Hype saying, not the biggest fan of the modern tough format, unfortunately. Yeah, if you watched a few of these Ultimate Fighters, you kind of get tired of it. He also says, could we go over Road to UFC? Well, Road to UFC. It's Road to UFC, man. Nobody cares about it, really. I watched all the fights. Both days I watched all the fights. There's some good prospects there. But, yeah, man, it seems like the UFC doesn't even care about it too much. You know what I mean? M says, I don't know about the format, but there are some interesting fighters on the show like Vera, McKenzie, Valiev, Knight, and Rob. Yeah, there's definitely those guys. Hype saying Brad Katona and Valiev have no business being on the show. Yeah, because they deserve to be in the UFC right now. A lot of those guys deserve to be in the UFC. M saying, no way Conor is coming back. He is retired, and I believe it. Hype is saying, are they going to push the finale date back? I don't get it. No, they would never. They're going to have the show. It doesn't really matter if the finale happens, right? Because the fight is never guaranteed, no matter who it is. It could be Mighty Mouse versus, I don't know, whoever, but it doesn't matter. Like, the finale is going to happen.
They broke away. Oh, sorry. I was going to say they broke away from that mandatory coaches fighting each other format, to me, which is a staple and the backbone of the show. They broke away from that format so long ago that they're just.
The last two were like that though, right? Because it was Ortega Volk and Nunes and Pena.
Just remember,
the last two?
Conor, the last time he was on Tough, he didn't even fight because he was coaching against Uriah Faber.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? They just want him to be on the show, and that's what they wanted, and that's what they got, right?
I mean, they need him. They need him. Like the last couple, I watched sparingly. I don't know many people who saw every episode of the last few, to be honest. Like, they needed someone to pump some life back into the show. Why not be the biggest star you have? Like, John Jones will be the next season. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And it seemed like Conor
will be the one after.
Conor goes in there and he trains with the boys, right? Have you noticed that it seems like he's just he's beating them up? You know what I mean? Like, it's like he's just
let me see if I still got it.
Yeah, like he's just testing himself against these guys. And it's kind of wild, right? Because
first day, all right, we're gonna do some hard sparring. Let's go. Get your gear.
Aren't these guys bantamweights? Are they featherweights? I forgot the weight class.
Thought it was 35. Yeah, 30. Was it 35 and 55? It was something like that. Jeez, I can't remember.
Okay, I forget. But Paulo Costa, coked up Conor will be a different animal. No one at welterweight is safe. Yes, a lot of people love coked up Conor, and
especially if you can go in there on the juice, right? As long as USADA plays ball. Conor. And to Rob's point much earlier in the show, if Conor doesn't fight, if something happens, that's the play. USADA didn't let him, USADA this, USADA that. We didn't really we couldn't do anything from our end. It's all USADA and Conor stuff. Like, that's the way it goes.
Well, the thing is, the UFC still has Conor for like a few more fights, right? Because he signed that 8-fight deal a while back. So they're in a good position, right? If he does come back, they're going to make the money off of it. And that's what it's all about for the UFC.
I just don't know what the play is for Conor. Like, the money, he's obviously, it's not chump change. For anyone saying like Conor has made so much money, he doesn't need money from the UFC. He's not making 800,000. Like, that's still big money he's getting from the UFC. Yeah. So for that,
more money than anybody.
Right. So he's still going to, like, there's still a lot of money to be made in the UFC. I just don't know. I can't see any long play for Conor. Because even if you say he wants to keep fighting until his contract's over so he could do another boxing match with somebody, you don't have enough time.
I think he could do a boxing match while under contract with the UFC. Like, he's done it before. Why would he not do it again?
Yeah, I was gonna say like the last comments that Dana made, but Dana's comments don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like, it's whatever's convenient for him at the moment.
When Conor fights, right, he already draws a massive audience, right? And number two, he gets to promote all of his brands. That's huge for him because that's just, he gets the audience right in front of the brands that sometimes the audience don't get to see, right? That maybe follows the UFC but doesn't follow Conor, right? He gets his brand. I think that's what's important for him as well, because he's a businessman, right? Like he wants to promote, and he's probably getting paid a substantial amount from these companies to promote, right? And get them in the rooms that they probably wouldn't be able to get into, right? Through fighting. So we'll see, man. We'll see if it all happens. One last topic, man, I wanted to get into before we go out is the topic of Dana White pushing for a fight.
Come by.
A fight. Here, he's pushing for a fight between Tyson Fury and John Jones, right? And not too long ago, he was talking about, right?
I got
Sicko,
you. Hold on. I got you loaded up.
John Jones, or he was talking about, what was it? Like
Hold
boxing,
on. I got this perfect
boxers
for you. Here,
and MMA fighters shouldn't fight. Yeah.
MMA guys versus boxers doesn't make any sense to me. MMA guys versus boxers.
That was 2 weeks ago. MMA guys and boxers just doesn't make any sense to me. Conor and Floyd was just the perfect thing, and I didn't even want to do it, and I don't even know if I would do it again. It's just the perfect storm. We had to do it. And then now he's like, all right, let's get Fury. Let's try to get Tyson in here. I mean, it doesn't even make sense to me. It's not a possibility. I don't care what anybody says. It's not happening. Tyson Fury's never gonna go and fight in MMA unless you can 100% without a doubt pay him 3-4 times the amount he would get for fighting Usyk. And according to the UFC, they don't have that money. That's the whole point, right? Of why we can't pay fighters more. People think that we're making more money than we're making. We can't pay these fighters that much. You know what would happen to the roster of the UFC if Tyson Fury comes in, never fights in MMA before, comes in and gets paid $100 million from the UFC? You know what that does to everybody else on the roster? That's just, I don't even know what he's getting at, to be honest. Like, I don't even know why he's saying this.
Well, if they're making $300-400 million, of course they could pay him $100 million. You know what I mean? Like, Dana knows like there's going to be a certain amount of money that they can make with this fight, to where yes, we could pay him $100 million and still be lovely, still make crazy revenue, still make crazy cash. Just like,
I mean, you would
make
assume
the board members happy,
pay-per-view buys,
right?
For sure.
And to be honest with you, if he can make the fight, make the fight. If you can make it, make the fight.
I guarantee you he hasn't even had a conversation with anybody to even be saying this.
You know what? I might be able to this week, right? Like tomorrow I'm heading to Bangkok, right? And I might get an interview with Tyson Fury.
Ooh, nice.
Like, I'm working on that with my boy Nick over at SDMP. He has the connection. We might be able to sit down with Tyson Fury. So all of this stuff,
that'd be awesome.
If I get to interview him in some way, maybe I'll just be behind the camera. I don't really care, you know what I mean? But if Nick is interviewing him, like, I will give Nick the questions, you know, like some of my questions to ask Tyson Fury if we get a chance to sit down with Tyson Fury, because that's like the biggest interview I would ever do.
That's
so
a massive interview, dude.
Yeah,
that's massive.
Right.
That's massive.
At the same time, like, what the fuck? Like, first off, Dana goes on and on about being a boxing fan at heart, blah, 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 right? We know that. We know you love boxing, bro. You watch boxing right during the middle of your own event. We know you love boxing. So what sells boxing? Knockouts. You had a heavyweight who knocks people out called Francis. Everybody on planet Earth wanted, and still to a degree wants, to see Tyson Fury and Francis. You squander that opportunity, totally just squander it, and then you're going to try to talk shit and bait Fury into the octagon. Bro, guy, you could have easily had your hands in both the pockets carrying duffel bags of cash if you would have just let the natural order of what the fight fans want, which was knockout artist versus the heavyweight champion. Let that happen. You don't even care about Francis that much. Why do you even care if he went into the boxing ring and got slept? If he did,
and think about how perfect that would have been, though. Like, let's say the UFC re-signs Francis to keep him, they allow him to go into a boxing match, right? Even if he goes out there, John comes back at the same time, you would have had Francis versus Fury, which only brings more eyeballs to your company. Even if Francis goes and gets sparked, which we can assume probably, like, his chances against the best fighter, like, it's probably not going to be good in that format. But even if he gets sparked, that's still just going to bring eyeballs for him to come back and fight John Jones. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I don't.
Yeah,
This to me is just a dig. He just wants to take a little poke and a little dig at Francis. That's all this is.
I don't know, and I haven't seen. It's not like I haven't seen Francis say anything personally bad about Dana White. For Dana White to be
Not
this,
beforehand.
not beforehand, but like to be this bitter, to be this sour, to be this, I'll say it, fucking petty. Like, dude, what are you doing? You're killing. And I don't know how much credibility he had with the public in general, but like, you're just looking like a burnt X, and that's all I gotta say about it.
I mean, taking shots at the PFL too, like talking about their business and how he knows that they don't have money coming from Saudi, and he knows what they're not making, and I'm like, bro, come on, man. He went his separate ways. Even Francis said it himself in Rob's favorite person in the world, Ariel Hawani. Even in the interview that he had with Francis said it himself. His exact words were, "They did a lot for me in my career. I'll forever be grateful. I don't understand where this is coming from. All I wanted to do was fulfill my contract. I did it. I did it off of one leg so I could become a free agent. I don't know why they hate me." It's kind of sad to see, to be honest.
Business is ruthless, man. And that's why Dana White's in the position he's in, because he's been ruthless throughout his whole career.
He's
as
a brute in business, man. He really
exactly, man. And like him or hate him, he's successful. And his practices, what they say about like successful business people, they're heartless. Like they will go after anything. They're not gonna listen to anybody. Like that's what Dana White is. And he's a walking contradiction. But who isn't though?
I just don't understand how he's so comfortable with contradicting himself. Like it's like he just completely forgets,
because he knows most people are not very smart.
His exact words were, "This is exactly what's wrong with boxing. It's nothing but gimmick fights, and this is why boxing's dying."
Well, he said that, and then the next week he put together the BMF title fight.
And he's trying to get Fury over to fight. Now he's trying to get Fury to come up, which I'm like, gimmick fights is what didn't you have James Toney fight? Didn't you have CM Punk fight? Like gimmick fights are what you guys are into as well. What do you offered Jake Paul to come into the UFC? You're into gimmick fights. Exactly. Did you create the slap league?
Defending
like gimmicky stuff.
Defending promoters just for half a second. That's their job, first and foremost. Second, think about it almost like I'm metaphorically, right? The Dana White has been with the UFC for a long time. He's grown the fruit tree, right? You got to wait those years and years before the tree can bear fruit. At certain point, you pick all the damn fruit and you get everything you've worked for all this time before. And I think Dana White is at that stage of his career now. Oops, sorry about that. He's at that stage of his career where he put in all the work. He's built the foundation. He's put all the credibility and all this stuff. And now it's pull the fruit from the tree and grab those money bags off that tree. That's the way I think about it now.
I just don't like him attacking certain people. Like I get it. Even if you're being even if you're just constantly contradicting yourself, that's fine. Like there's no need to attack the PFL. There's no need to attack Francis on a personal level, saying that he doesn't like to take risks. The guy that has the background Francis has, where he came from, what he had to do to even be in this position, fighting Cyril Gane on one leg, but yeah, he just doesn't like to take risks.
Nothing has changed though.
He likes to play his life safely.
Remember I don't know if like a lot of people that watch this sport remember when Dana White used to do the scrums, and that's where he would really go off. Like this is just him doing him. He's just doing it at the post, but he used to do those scrums, right, where everybody would just like surround him, and then they would just be throwing shit at him, and he would just go off, right? Yeah. And then they told him like, stop doing those because you just go too crazy, right? But it's nothing has changed, man. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if I was in his position and I was solely dedicated to grow the UFC, that I wouldn't be doing the same exact things. Like, I don't know if I would, I don't know if I wouldn't be doing the same exact things as he is. I could criticize him and I don't agree with it, but I could understand the method of what he's doing, and trying to, and maybe he thinks in his mind it's chess.
I mean, it's what got him here. That's what got him here. Like being that type of just brute force in the industry is what got him here.
It's better to be feared than loved, right? That's what people say.
His own line, I've been in the tough guy business for a long time. He didn't say I've been in sport promotion. I'm not taking care of fighters and fighter safety. The tough guy business. And that sends a tone of where he's coming from, right? Like he's the alpha dog and that's it.
Yeah. He's got an ego. He's petty. You know, like that's a characteristic of a lot of people. A lot of successful people have huge egos and are extremely petty. And it
The
kind of
fact that
gets them.
the fact that this man said boxing is nothing but gimmick fights the day after
Yeah.
Earl Spence Jr. and Terrence Crawford guys announced that. It's wild
Well,
to
you know,
me.
that's what he says, right? And people that don't follow, they just believe it. And there's a lot of dumb people out there. There's a lot of dumb people out there, man. Like
Yeah.
seriously, a tremendous amount. And I
Or
think
just
that's
his
the best
fan
way.
base. Like he has such a massive fan base. When you have a
Yeah.
legit fan, whatever
Yeah.
you say, they're rock. How many people do we see that are just like Francis ruined his life, ruined his career by stepping away from the
Yeah,
UFC? It's like,
'cause
no,
they-
he didn't.
Some people really worship Dana White,
Yeah.
and you know, and beyond like logic, and that's what it is. And he's just doing what he does. Perfect way to get out of here, man. Going at Dana White. Everybody, appreciate you joining us. You know, we see you in the comments. Make sure you guys go follow Sicko at Sicko Sports and JSpec the host. Subscribe to this channel, and we'll be back next week for another show. Peace, love, and don't beat anybody up.
Try not to.